So use breathing as a verb, right?
Because like that, because when that's what I was going to say was that you said, well, we don't own a position unless we can breathe fundamentally in it. People are sitting there saying, I breathe fine. But, like in jiu-jitsu, second somebody's like on mount position, they hold their breath, or, they can't hold their breath like, well, 3D while they're doing to brace properly, like with a heavy squat or something like that. We all think we breathe properly, but everybody's like, like that kind of creepy stalker breathing and things like that. How should we breathe, and how have you noticed? Like, how would you adapt people just to learn how to start breathing properly?
There's so many good resources around this right now. Patrick McCone of Oxygen Advantage, I'd point you there. I would say go look at the Butraco breathing method, look at XPT, look at Mike, the book Breathe, JP Nestor, look at Melissa Vranich's book. There are so many, Brian McKenzie, Shift, so many good resources here. So if you want to deep dive, enjoy yourself. Go to yoga class, understand what that's about. Fundamentally, keep in mind that people will say things like, it doesn't matter how you breathe. Well, I'm like, okay, under what conditions? Under low load, low speed, low stress, you're that efficient and effective. We know from anecdotal evidence, we'll call it anecdotal evidence, which is a small subjective experiment. Someone lost his lung and he still climbed to Everest. That's how amazing human beings are.
Yeah.
You can climb Everest with one lung. If a horse gets pneumonia, oftentimes that horse dies because the efficiency in that system is so fine. The tolerances are fine. Lose a lung, welcome to Everest. That's remarkable. But as soon as we start talking about overbreathing or the diseases of breathing, clenching your jaw, headaches, right? Overbreathing, gum disease, all of those mouth breathing, suddenly you're starting to say, okay, well, those are downstream effects from what? Well, maybe something is less efficient or less effective. We've come to realize from the work of people like Brian McKenzie and Leon Chaitau, et cetera, that oxygen really isn't the big master chemical we thought it was. It turns out CO2 is the master. And for everyone who knows this, forgive me, but for those of you who don't, the CO2 is the big driver of needing to breathe. And one of the things we know is that your body's ability to tolerate CO2, higher CO2 levels, circulating CO2 levels, means that you can actually take more oxygen off the hemoglobin. So if I haven't trained you to be really tolerant to that toxicity, gnarly, burny, I feel ugly, I'm getting wheezy feeling, and I haven't trained your brainstem to say that's okay, then you'll immediately stop your force production. You'll slow down. You'll pant and breathe and catch up. You have enough oxygen. Your oxygen saturation is still in the 90s, high 90s likely. Mm-hmm. But what we start to see is you start to become better and more tolerant at handling those higher CO2s. And then you can infinitely strip down oxygen into the 70s easily and still be winning the Tour de France. That's an incredible reservoir of performance. One of the easiest ways to think about breathing is that we use breathing for a lot of the metrics that we use. But one of the things we say is, well, let's get you into a position where you can take a bigger breath. So if you and I are looking at each other right now and I just say, hey, can you get into a different position where it allows you to take a bigger breath? You'll intuitively sit up, pull your rib cage down, head will come taller, your pelvis will be more midline. I didn't tell you to do any of those things, but you can feel that you have more access to your physiology in that shape. So for us, I'm like, oh, look at that. We got your body into a position where you could take more air in, had more pliability in your rib cage, right? More compliance of the rib cage. You had better diaphragm excursion. Suddenly your trunk, you could create higher intra-abdominal pressures. You could ventilate more effectively. Holy moly, maybe that works on the bike too. Maybe that works when I set up in my deadlift. And what we see is that I can give someone a feeling of saying, hey, is this a good position or bad position? I'm like, well, I don't think there's a good position or bad position. Try to ride in an aero position. Try to surf. They're going to be in some wretched positions as a human being.